Later on Friday, the presidency confirmed that the Minister for Electricity in the presidency, Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, has now been given his formal powers, and that he will now have the power to procure electricity and to determine what kind of electricity that will be. In other words, how it's generated. But it also seems that the Energy Minister, Kgosientsho, will still be playing a big role in the procurement of new electricity. And, of course, there's the Public Enterprises Minister, Prof. He still has authority over Eskom. Professor Mark Swilling is the co-director of the Centre for Sustainable Transitions at the University of Stellenbosch. Professor, good afternoon to you. I really appreciate the time this Sunday. There's a lot around the law here, but from what we can see, what kind of powers does Ramokgopa now have as the Minister for Electricity?
It's been very difficult to figure out what exactly is going on through all the various communication, but the dust seems to be settling, and what we now know is that the Minister of Electricity will basically have powers to set what are called determinations, which are really proclamations around what kind of electricity and how much is required. The problem is that most of the determinations that are required for the next couple of years have already been made. All the other important stuff remains with Kgosientsho and Pravin Gordhan. So when it comes to executive authority over Eskom, that's Pravin Gordhan. When it comes to the actual procurement of renewable through the IPP office, that remains with Kgosientsho. When it comes to education, power sector reform, that remains with Kgosientsho. When it comes to accelerating rooftop solar, that remains with Kgosientsho. So what's actually been allocated to the Minister of Electricity is relatively minor.
So you're saying, because if you look at sort of the press releases, if you look at what's said politically by the presidency, it looks like the electricity minister is now solely in charge. You're saying that's not true at all?
Well, in the president's mind, it seems he's making the distinction between load shedding and the rest of the energy system. And he's in a sense almost like carved out load shedding as a problem. And when he made that speech where he announced the Minister of Electricity, he went off script and said he needs help in taking responsibility for ending load shedding. Hence a minister in the presidency who's going to basically be helping him. So that's why he's got Ramokgopa focused on ending load shedding. And what we were all expecting from this announcement is that would mean giving Ramokgopa substantial authority over the solutions. But actually, substantial authority over the solutions remains with Kgosientsho, given the list that I've already described to you.
This is astonishing because, basically leads to more questions about why the president has made this appointment in the first place. And also, can you imagine being Kgosientsho Ramokgopa, everyone's going to blame you for load shedding when, on the interpretations you've explained, it's really about the powers that Mantashe has?
Yeah, that's true. It's astonishing if you think the only thing that matters is powers. Legal powers to get things done. I'm probably one of the few who've been supportive of the idea of Ramokgopa as a minister responsible for load shedding in the presidency, because if his role is seen as facilitating policy coherence, and if that's the role he's going to play, that's not a bad idea actually, even though he doesn't have the powers. Just give you one example. Whenever Kgosientsho was challenged, why have we got load shedding, why don't you end it? He always used to say, oh, there's plenty of electricity on the grid. Eskom just has to switch it on, implying that they've got a hidden agenda, not switching it on, which later on he then named it, which was treason. Ramokgopa has been completely different. He went around to all the power stations. Kgosientsho said, nobody's ever done that. And he came back and he said, there's some serious problems here, and we need a lot of money to fix this. Then the Minister of Finance said, no, sorry, I'm not going to give you the money for that. But at least Ramokgopa has been honest that these power stations really are in trouble, and it's not just a case of hidden agenda at Eskom not switching on the switch. So for the first time, we're actually getting honest, clear-cut storyline, and also a commitment to renewables, 15 gigawatts he talked about. So, I think Ramokgopa is actually trying to facilitate some policy coherence without actual substantive powers. And it's not such a bad idea. We need that. Somebody has to do that. The president's not doing it. Somebody has to do it.
He's also, he does literally every interview. He's speaking probably 2 or 3 or 4 times a week. What he's doing when he does that is that he's concentrating minds. He's making people think, and he's putting up ideas, and he's saying, this is what we're going to do. It's important for government to be a big part of that, and government's sort of been absent sometimes when it comes to these conversations.
Yes, no, and he even, suggested that the car power ship deal should be a 5-year deal. That's actually quite sensible. A 20-year deal, power purchase agreement for car power ships is absolutely ridiculous because we won't need them after 5 years, and then we still have to keep on paying them in dollars at volatile gas prices. That's crazy, and I think Ramokgopa sees that. He's also, as I said, honest that the power stations are in trouble. He's also honest that we need a lot of renewables on the grid. We've never really had this before.
What's been going on behind the scenes that this has taken so long? I think it's 11 weeks from when Ramokgopa's announcement was made, when he was sworn in, until now. Have we all just been too obsessed by powers, the idea of legal powers, and not focusing enough on what the man's actually been doing? Because he's certainly been busy.
Yeah. I have the feeling there's been too much focus on powers. Yes, it's important. And the last couple of days, everybody's been scrutinizing exactly what's being said in which document, who's saying what, in order to, identify, is it Section 34.2, is it that or not, and what's excluded and what's, okay, fine, that's the business of government. But my understanding of politics is not just about legal power. My understanding of politics is about coherence, building political settlements, building agreements, building coalitions, building an actual understanding of what is going on. What Ramokgopa is saying now is no different to what Bereta said. Bereta was accused of treason. Ramokgopa is the energy hero.
Gwede Mantashe, as Energy Minister, fairly or unfairly, has been accused of all sorts of things. He's denied the accusations against him. He says he's not anti-renewable, although he also has made comments that the sort of renewable energy supporters have had huge problems with. Do you think Mantashe is going to step back from policy debates and let Ramokgopa just, sort of have all of the attention, or do you think he's still going to play quite an active role?
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's made it clear that he thinks Ramokgopa is a project manager, which is, slightly diminishing of Ramokgopa's role, especially if you understand the significance of political deal-making, facilitation, policy coherence. That's really important because Gwede Mantashe has not done that. I don't think he's going to step back. I think we can expect an integrated resource plan which reflects his view of the energy transition, which is more coal, more nuclear, less renewables, and more gas. I think we're going to have an energy, an electricity reform bill, which is also going to reflect his view of the world. And if we don't contest that view of the world, we're going to sit with the consequences for the next generation. Whereas the mainstream consensus now is, yes, you keep some of the power stations going, no need to kind of switch off prematurely, but it's not going to really affect load shedding very much. What really is going to make the difference is a whole lot more renewables, and he has now announced the bid windows of 5 and 5, so a total of 10 gigawatts, which is a bit less than what Ramokgopa said, which was 15 gigawatts. So I think there's a weird kind of consensus position around, yes, keep power stations going if you can, but do a whole pile of renewables. And if we stick to that, well and good. But I don't think that's what the RP that Gwede Mantashe is going to issue soon is going to be saying. And then we're going to be back into a chaotic policy environment again, because no one's going to fund coal, no one's going to fund nuclear in South Africa.
Well, this is the next issue, is that for all of this to work, we really need a sort of unified, consistent, coherent policy space where investors and everyone can see that it's going to be worth investing this amount of money, billions upon billions, in a project that's going to take 20 years to recoup that capital. from what you're saying, we still don't have that. And the longer we don't have that, the worse it's going to be. The longer we'll have load shedding.
I mean, it's weird. You actually have to listen very carefully and follow the minutiae of the messaging in order to realize that actually we're not in bad shape. If Ramokgopa is the one that is setting the directionality, and the 1.5 trillion rand that we need through to 27 to get us going, a la the cabinet-approved Just Energy Transition investment plan, as I say, cabinet-approved, it could all happen. But the private sector is nervous. Investors are nervous because the messaging that comes out of Gwede is not in line with the mainstream.
Professor Mark Swilling, really appreciate the time this Sunday afternoon. Thank you. Co-director of the Centre for Sustainable Transitions at the University of Stellenbosch.